So for our third card, we are going to create this pretty poppy card. Now we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to do the same blue background for a sky as the last one, but for the flower and for the leaf, we're going to use some texture paste to give it some extra dimension. So let's do the sky part first. And once again, I'm not doing this with the intent of having this completely covered and completely blue. If I wanted a blue background, I just use some black cardstock. I'm just trying to get the look of having a sky in the background. And I'm using some mixed media Heavystock. Anytime I do something with some texture paste, I like to use mixed media Heavystock just because it's going to hold the weight of texture paste, as well as it's going to do better in the moisture or with the moisture than regular cardstock would. So I'm covering any piece that I don't want to get the texture paste on. So these are all pieces of tape from my last card. Just cleaned them off and we're reusing them. So this is just plain texture paste. I did this same technique with some crackle texture paste, and in the end I liked the plain better, but just so if you're curious what it would look like with crackle paste, that's what it looks like. Oh, this card moved a little bit, so I'm just going to hold it down. So I'm working my way with the stencil from the outside in. I've got clearly a hard part in there because it's making those lines in there, but it'll be fine. So I'm working from the outside in just so that I'm not accidentally getting a little bit of the texture paste underneath the stencil. And then once I've got it completely filled, I just do one swipe all the way across to make sure that it's all nice and even. We're going to be coloring this in with some paint, so one even layer is going to do a lot better with paint. Now, you may have noticed I just lifted my stencil up this way. That way, if it falls in exactly the same spot, so I don't have to worry about ruining my texture paste. I'm going to clean my stencil completely off, and this needs to dry 100% before we go and stencil the leaf. If I were to do it right now, my stencil would go into the wet texture paste and would probably leave marks in it. So I'll see you when that's all done. Okay, so it's been about a half an hour and the texture paste isn't totally dry, but it's got enough of a crust on it that if I go to do the leaf right now, I'm not going to mess anything up. So I'm going to... And these pieces of tape, once they've got some texture paste on it, I typically don't use them over again, just because to wait for the texture paste to dry, often when you peel it back, it cracks and then you get stuff all over your desk or your project or whatever. So now I'm going to put some texture paste in the leaf area. I'm holding this down because of the dimension from the flower. I don't want the stencil paste to go underneath that leaf there. So that is enough. Once again, I'm lifting it straight up. Gonna let that completely dry, and I'm actually gonna let it dry completely overnight, and then we will start painting it in the next video.